My Life with Robyn Lambird.
So welcome everyone to the My Life With interview series. This week we have Robyn. Thank you for joining me, Robyn.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. I'm excited to get into some juicy stuff with you. I guess the first thing we'll do is I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, my name's Robyn Lambird. I'm 23. I have cerebral palsy and I'm an elite athlete and I guess you'd say a little bit of a disability advocate.
Yes, indeed. Great. That's a beautiful introduction. Thank you. So the first main question I want to get into is if you can tell us a bit about the main barriers that you face in society.
Yeah. I mean, I guess as, I'm a part-time wheelchair user, so like a lot of people with physical disabilities, the physical barriers in our society are still pretty present in a lot of places, just talking about access and things. But I think being lucky enough that I can sort of navigate those with a little bit of help, I think the biggest sort of barriers that I face are more just people's perceptions of me as a disabled person and the way that they define disability in their own head. So I guess when it comes to things like employment and education and stuff like that, I've faced a couple of barriers there just because they already put these limitations on me before, they even know what I'm capable of or, ways that I can navigate around my impairment and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any specific examples? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have specific examples, and you don't have to name names or anything, about when that type of thing has happened?
I guess for me, now I'm an elite athlete, hopefully going to my first Paralympics this year, fingers crossed. But in sport, I went from in school, getting C grades because teachers just weren't willing to sort of work around my impairment and let me compete on an even playing field. And I was really lucky that towards the end of my high school, time that I got a really good teacher who took me in the phys ed class and sort of worked with me so that I could, have adaptations made to the classes and stuff. And that brought my grades right up and I was able to graduate with the highest mark in my year for phys ed studies. So
Amazing.
For me, that's just a perfect example of if people are willing to work with you and the community is willing to support you, what you can achieve. But yeah, I've faced it, I still struggle to get employment, especially as an athlete who's looking for casual work. People don't want to hire someone who also has the inconvenience of being disabled and needing accommodations and stuff like that. So yeah
I guess I'm trying to think casual work, if you're working in hospitality or something like that. I can imagine that there's just a lot of barriers in terms of people with physical impairments. And two, just the business owners probably aren't thinking, they're probably thinking, some of them, the progressive ones are probably thinking, how can I make my business accessible for customers but not for their staff? I don't see many places where the barista is a wheelchair user or something like that. So,
and I mean, I understand it, it's a hard time for small businesses and it is an added pressure to them, but I think that's where we need policy and stuff that encourages people to sort of open up the job market and things like that. But
absolutely. And even government grants to support employment and creating that accessibility in employment rather than just accessibility in the sales process or the consumer process. So let's just take over government.
Let's do it.
So the next thing I thought would be really cool if you could talk to us about is the fact that you're a model and you use your Instagram a lot, and you've got a great following, by the way. Use your Instagram a lot to raise awareness about inclusion, representation, and accessibility. So I thought if you wanted to tell me a bit more about that, plug your Instagram handle, please.
Well, a few years back now, I got involved with Starting with Julius, who you obviously you've worked with, and Katia, and did a little bit of work with Emily Pryor as well, who was one of their main models to start off with, and managed to get a Target campaign, and I was the first adult with that uses a wheelchair that we know of to be in a nationwide advertising campaign. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was pretty cool because it's sort of, advertising, we see it everywhere. So it's a perfect way to sort of normalize disability because it's almost subliminal, messaging.
Yeah.
But from that, I found that the biggest sort of impact that it had was like other people with disabilities seeing that and feeling empowered to sort of put themselves out there and to show the world that disability is just a normal part of human diversity. So since then I've sort of really worked with Instagram to try and build that community on that platform and to sort of whilst educating able-bodied people about life with a disability, also empowering disabled people to just go out there and to show themselves, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have this thing where I don't think the onus should always be on people with disability, but I guess the more that we put ourselves out there as well, in safe ways, obviously, using safe spaces to put ourselves out there and show non-disabled people that, we make up 17% of Australia's population and something like 18 or 19% of the world's population. So we're here. We're one of the largest minority groups and marginalized communities that exist in the world and in each country. So represent us. We're consumers. We have money to spend as well. So it's called the disabled dollar, and there's lots of it, and we want to spend it on places where we're included and represented and where things are accessible to us. So super important, and I love what you're doing. And
Thanks.
Because starting with Julius Art also, they've got some exciting things coming up that I'm helping them with. So keep eyes out for that, Robyn. So another kind of reason why I'm doing this series is to break down common misconceptions that society and non-disabled people have about disability and about people with disability. And a massive one is sex and dating. So I didn't know if you had some horror stories or some, really positive stories about your dating experience or sex life that you wanted to share.
Yeah. I think like I've grown a lot in that area within the last couple of years. Like during high school, I honestly just thought I was going to like die alone because I never saw like disability as like being sexy or like even people with disabilities having like any sexual interests. Like it just like wasn't in the media. I thought maybe that's just like not for us. But then I kind of got onto Tinder, and like everyone, it's a real mixed bag on there. So I met some interesting people, to say the least. But I also had a lot of positive experiences, and just people that just weren't fazed at all by the disability and just sort of were just interested in me because of me. And now obviously I've been with my partner for like 3 years, so going strong. And I fell out of my wheelchair on our first date, and it didn't bother him. So I was like, I knew he was a keeper.
Oh my god, what a legend!
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Like access, or were you drunk?
No, we hadn't started drinking yet. It was like just a really bad curb, and I just like fully flipped out of my chair. So but and I just think that like I think now we're getting to a place where we're starting to see disability and that kind of topic come up in the media. I was like watching the second series of Sex Education the other day, and there's like a quadriplegic in that now, which is really awesome.
So good.
Yeah, so I think it's really awesome for people that are sort of like growing up now to sort of witness that and to know that like you're just like everyone else. Like you might have to do things slightly differently, or you're gonna have to have a partner that's understanding of your limitations and things, but it can all work out pretty well.
Did you have any memories of really bad Tinder experiences, like, or anyone
like funny? People trying to incorporate the wheelchair into pickup lines? I'm just like
every time.
Hot Wheels, can't wait to take you for a ride later, and I'm like,
oh my god. I kind of love it though at the same time. Like I'm like, I'm not talking to you though. Only I can do this. I've definitely used the hashtag Hot Wheels before, so I'm probably setting myself up.
I feel like it's fine when you're like, ironically like reclaiming. But
reclamation, it's a thing. That is actually a thing. Yeah.
To be continued. Reclamation, community experiences, and disability as a culture.